Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to have some fun today with our Wildwood at home chit-chatteroony. I'm with the mighty Charlie Hunter, who does things to a guitar that are, I'm going to say, fiendish. He's playing harmony, and then he's leading on top of that. And you know what? Every time I see it, my brain just kind of goes skidoidal, because you see a lot of people. Well, not a lot of people. There are some people that are very gifted at being able to take beautiful pop tones, you know what I'm saying, and be able to play the bass line and the chords and do a very clever arrangement that's all inclusive on the guitar. These people are out of their minds. And Charlie not only does that, but he improvises in the environment of accompanying with himself in a way that is just so savage. And I enjoyed immensely. So to be able to converse with him today here, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot of fun. Charlie, how the heck are you?
Dude, I'm doing damn well. And thank you for that intro, because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Greg, man.
Well, bless you. It's fun to be able to meet you virtually and engage in a little bit of a jam-a-lama earlier on in the quarantine.
Yeah, that was a ball, man. And your son sounds great, by the way.
Well, thank you. He is he's sitting right over there, as a matter of fact, with his giant mane of hair.
Oh, wow.
Yo, he says. Dylan says, yo.
Tell him I said he can go to hell with that hair.
He can go to, exactly. Tell him I said, enjoy it while it lasts, because
exactly
the skullet will appear.
Exactly. That's like a subheading of youth is wasted on the young. It's in that. It's one of the bullet points.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But it is kind of fun being in quarantine with the boy, because we can rock out at will.
Yeah, that's killer.
Within reason, because I have 4 kids. He's the oldest of 4.
Oh, wow.
And so I got 2 girls are immediately below him, and then a son. So he's 25, I got 23, I got 19, I got 17. And then my wife is also working from home up in the attic frontier. So there's a lot of people to keep somewhat happy here.
Yeah.
At Koch residence. So,
I dig it. I dig it.
Now, where are you at? What are you doing? You're out in North Carolina?
Yeah, I'm in Greensboro, and I know this is not a very flattering thing. I mean, all of the stuff behind me is flattering. It's just my face that's the problem. No, it's I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. My wife and I, we have 2 kids. We have 19 and 17. And we moved here from Jersey about 2 years ago. And I really dig it. I dig it here. I needed to downshift from 5th gear to 2nd gear and stop paying the insane amount of money. I mean, I was just on the road all the time, and I was just like on a hamster wheel that kept getting sped up, and I was on the wheel and I was getting the money, and the second I got the money, it went out of my hand to pay for in a place that I wasn't, there that much, and I was just constantly on the road to pay. It made no sense anymore. And I definitely aged out of the New York scene. You know what I mean? So here we are. I dig it though, man.
Now, how did you end up figuring that was cool? Do you have some family down there, or what was your reason for kind of picking that?
Because, like we both probably been doing the same laps around the U.S. for years, so you kind of learn the lay of the land, right? And I've always liked this area of North Carolina, from kind of Raleigh, Durham, all the way to Asheville. Like anywhere on 40 is kind of cool, Yeah. And we had a friend in Winston-Salem, a guy named Dave McNair, who is a great mastering engineer, and he was my neighbor in Jersey as well. And so Winston is just 20 miles from here, and we just checked it out. We're like, okay, this is cool, because it feels like where I grew up in the 70s. It feels like the East Bay in California. It feels like Berkeley, with all the weird and all the funky stuff as well thrown in. I
like it.
Like the stuff that's not as desirable, but you realize that that's an integral part of the ecosystem. Don't mess with that. Don't mess with that, or you're going to hear clapping on 1 and 3 before you know it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your background, because you've kind of been all over the place. Now, how much time did you spend in Rhode Island when you were growing up? How quickly did you move out to the Bay Area?
Oh man, we spent very little time in Rhode Island. My parents, it's a long story. They were Greenwich Village, like folksters, and Trotskyites. That's their whole vibe in the early 60s. So they had all of their, they were really into the whole scene then, like Reverend Gary Davis and Mississippi John Hurt. Those were their homies, and they just decided to make a family, and it didn't work out. So when I was about 4, my mom bought a school bus, and we traveled around the country on a school bus for about 4 or 5 years.
You need to talk to my son Dylan, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to buy a school bus and make it into a schoolie. Have you heard about this? You get this old school bus and you remodel it into a lair of doom. And so he literally went up 2 days ago to look at about 4 different school buses.
Well,
please continue.
Does he want to drive it anywhere, or is it just going to sit somewhere and be a house?
I think yes to both of those questions.
Okay.
So the potential for movement needs to be there, but there's also a great desire I think I'll park it here for a while and suss out this particular layer.
Yeah, I think parking it here for a while is a good idea with any bus that someone like us can afford, because they always break down, and the repairs are legion and incredibly expensive.
Yeah, okay.
This
is good information. No, Dylan, I'll be talking to him later about
it. Anyway, so we ended up in Berkeley in the mid 70s, like 1975. And my mom was, there's a lot of lefty political stuff we grew up with, and lots of organizing and that kind of thing. And we of course we did the whole living in a bunch of different places, even when we were in Berkeley. Sure. But a lot of the time was near Subway Guitars, which I imagine if you've been out there, have you been there to Subway Guitars?
I have not been there, actually.
But you know the spot.
Particular store.
Yeah, Fat Dog. The guy's name is Fat Dog. You would go there and you would immediately feel like this was your long lost home. You know what excellent. I mean? Immediately you would just be like, okay, I'm home. This is cool. They speak my language here, Anyhow, she repaired guitars and bloody. But yeah, I grew up in Berkeley in the Bay Area, went to Berkeley High at a time when, that was a pretty heavy music thing going on there. With the jazz band had a million different notables in it, Josh Redman and Dave Ellis and, Will Bernard, the guitar player.
Yeah, I know that name.
Yeah, he's another Berkeley High guy. Stephen Bernstein, Lenny Pickett, the Digital Underground, Alex Skolnick, the guitar player. Yeah. He's a dude. He's my buddy, man. He used to have he was a total nerd, and he was like 2 years younger than us. And we just always used to f- with him because of the way he wore his backpack, but there was a time in like the late 80s that me, Alex Skolnick, Michael Franti, who's a Spearhead guy, Alvin Youngblood Hart, and Taj Mahal was behind because he lived back there. But he was always on the scene. We all worked there at the same time. And the guitar store, like this 1,000 square foot space. You know what I mean? Wild. Yeah. And Jude Gold, who was a guitar, he was my student at that time. So yeah, it was guitar. It was with guitar players.
Now you took our very last interview that we did was with Joe Satriani. Now you took he also teaching at that place? Oh yeah. So and I have to ask you some questions though, because I actually have some questions I want to ask you. Oh. But so there was another guitar store called Secondhand Guitars. And my mom actually repaired guitars for both of those places. And Secondhand Guitars was like a mile from Subway Guitars. And I lived in between. So I would go to both places and annoy the living out of them until they kicked me out and maybe go to the other place, But Joe Satriani taught in Secondhand Guitars. And it was like a small guitar store with a little tiny, 60 square foot room in the back with no windows. And Joe would be back there 8 hours a day, just teaching lesson after lesson after lesson, man, grinding it. He was grinding it, man, and I remember my mom taking me there because I was just getting in way too much trouble. And she was like, look, you got to teach this kid, he's just do something, please, and I remember sitting there with my guitar, because I thought I could play a little bit. And,
I saw what I thought at 14 was like a grown man. He was probably 18 or
Sure,
19,
exactly.
come out of the room with tears in his eyes. And I was like, that's not happening to me. I'm not going down like that, man. and then Joe was a great teacher, man. And so he really got me to turn my street urchin thing around and get really addicted to practicing guitar.